going to give this movie a 7.5 out of 10.
I'm going to give Man of Steel a 7 out of 10.
I'm going to give Man of Steel a 6 out of 10.
With the new Batman vs. Superman movie coming out, we decided to rewatch Man of Steel. This, I think, was my fourth time, maybe third time seeing the movie. And after it was over, I did feel it was very visually impressive. There were a lot of cool visuals. Special effects were well done. The CGI, Krypton, I felt, and the technology was very creative. I guess sometimes I felt myself asking, it's kind of elaborate, the technology, but it seems very inefficient, sort of. Like he's showing, Clark Kent's real father is showing him kind of the story of their planet and their civilization. And it's really cool looking visually, but you kind of think, don't they have like video of it that you could show him that would be better? But I don't know. It's a different civilization, so some creativity and stuff that seems odd is probably a good thing. But otherwise, I felt the movie looked oversaturated and at times, and other times undersaturated, like too low of saturation. And it was intentional, but I didn't really like it. I prefer more of an organic color in movies, and I wasn't a big fan of it, especially because it made his suit look so muted. And every scene with his suit, they used the low saturation because they were trying to give a darker feel when he's fighting Zod and all that type of stuff. Otherwise, in regards to the story, I liked the opening. It was a little bit fast, but I guess that's to be expected. After that, I never really was able to connect with Clark Kent's character, at least not too much. I felt the flashbacks and the way they did it, it felt a little bit disjointed. In any given movie, I like to be able to think back of the movie and think of a part that's very emotional, where you can say, this was an emotionally tugging scene. And I didn't really find any in this movie. There was a ton of collateral damage, buildings falling down, but you never really see anyone get killed. You have the people at the Daily Planet who are in danger. You don't really know them too well, so you don't care that much about their character. But otherwise, you see all these skyscrapers crashing down, but you don't see anyone dying. And people complained about it because they felt it was too dark for Superman. I didn't really care about that, but it just felt kind of like there was no impact to all this stuff that was going on. I liked the action. It was fast-paced but not sloppy, but I would have preferred that they used slow motion a little bit. It would have worked well in a movie like this that's really fast, so you can kind of slow it down and really see what's going on, maybe see more emotion in the characters' faces. It's so fast, it's hard to kind of connect with what's happening. I guess it was a unique kind of approach. Zack Snyder likes slow motion and he didn't use it, so it's different for him. Overall, this movie was a big disappointment. It's enjoyable to watch. Russell Crowe, it's a good performance. The guy who plays Zod, it's enjoyable. I would have preferred maybe they had more backstory to him. That might have made it more interesting because they had the whole planned out. Everyone is bred for a certain purpose. They could have maybe showed his backstory more and expanded upon his character. Maybe got us more emotionally invested in him. They decided not to, which is understandable because there's so much going on in this movie. It was a bit of a mess, in my opinion.
Overall, I like this movie way more than you guys. I don't mind the darker, more serious Superman. There is flaws with the movie, but overall, I think part of it is just taste. I like it more than you guys, but there is flaws, and the best way to sum them up, more or less, is that the movie is very cold and bitter, kind of. As you were saying, like, there isn't much emotional attachment to anyone, and Clark Kent often feels cold, and he doesn't have much of character stuff going on. It's just a very cold movie. There's not a lot of humor to it. And that is the main problem overall with it. I think it works better structurally than you guys because I feel like it's actually kind of like Batman Begins now that I'm thinking about it, where events occur and it sets him on the path which will eventually have him be Superman, and as those are happening it goes back to these flashbacks so you better understand what brought him here and who he is as a person, which they do that in Batman Begins. When he's training with Raja Kul, it will go back to flashbacks to him as a kid. So I thought that worked better. The score by Hans Zimmer is really good, though. The main theme is overused a little bit, where they just kind of use it over and over again, but it is a very good one, so I didn't mind it that much. I did like the score a lot. The action was all very well done. Everything looks really good, all the effects and all that. I really liked it. It's more my kind of Superman where I wanted to see action. I wanted to see the really powerful Superman, and I didn't mind any of the destruction stuff. And I think it's one of those things where those things in Batman vs Superman, those things are going to be addressed. That he caused all this destruction. But like I did like it showed how powerful these people really are, which the Superman movie never really showed. That he's like really, really powerful, and even when he's just taking off or landing, he causes the ground to break. Yeah.
Okay, I don't really like this movie very much. I do think there are some good things about it. I like the visuals. I do really like Hans Zimmer's score. I like the action. As a Superman fan, it's nice to finally get to see Superman fighting in like a big budget modern blockbuster. But I don't really think the story works very well. I think there's a lot of mixed messages. I mean, to a certain extent, they're trying to contrast Jor-El's what Jor-El wants for Clark with what Pa Kent wants. Where Pa Kent is kind of trepidatious about how people are going to feel about him, but Jor-El wants him to inspire people. But then the movie never really seems to decide, and Clark never really seems to decide which father figure he's going to really follow. I mean, he does kind of follow Jor-El's advice, but then he seems to still like appreciate what his father did, which I don't really understand. I don't really like a lot of the stuff with Pa Kent, and it feels just odd to me. As far as the destruction goes, I guess I don't mind it that much. My biggest problem is really that he does kill Zod. It just feels unnecessary. It feels like Zack Snyder just wanted to have this shocking moment, and it's really just kind of this isolated moment. It's never really addressed before or after or set up in any way. I think there are some odd narrative choices. There are scenes where people explain things that we've already seen, and it just feels redundant. So yeah, I don't like this movie very much at all. I think there are things to enjoy about it, but overall it was a big disappointment.
Yeah, a few other random things. The bright lights. Zack Snyder chose to do this, like these bright, kind of overexposed looking lights. It's like kind of a modern look.
It feels very J.J. Abrams at times visually.
Yeah, and I just didn't like it. It was a little bit distracting. Other than that, the one scene I was a bit confused about is Clark Kent is talking to, what's her face?
Lois Lane.
Yeah, Lois Lane, and in the graveyard, and it has the flashback to when his father dies. Is he supposed to be telling her about when telling that story as the flashback is going on? It kind of felt like that, and then when he says, my father died, it was just such a emotionless delivery, and I felt like that could have been a really emotionally tugging scene, but it was just cut too short. It didn't linger on it long enough, and it didn't work because of that. But yeah, otherwise, I really like Watchmen. I was expecting this to be really good, or hoping it would be really good, and it just wasn't. But
another thing I'd like to mention is that the way they have Lois Lane go on the ship near the end is kind of forced and doesn't really work very well. It feels like a forced way to get her into the action, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Go ahead. Make my day.
My favorite quote from this movie is, "You will give the people of this earth an ideal to strive towards. There are race behind you, they will stumble and they will fall, but in time they will join you in the sun. In time you will help them achieve wonders."
my least favorite quote in this movie was kind of the icing on the cake. like the very near the end, where the girl says he's kind of hot. That was just so bad. Terrible line.
My least favorite quote from this movie is where Clark asks his father, "Should I just have let them die?" And then his father says, "Maybe." Yeah, I kind of just detest that scene. So.